BArcadians, and welcome to another edition of Gaming News Weekly with your hosts, as ever, me, Tabs, my good friend Rich. Say hello, Rich.
Hello, BArcadians. How are you all doing today?
If this is your first time, then just as a PSA, we record, or at least we put a video out every week, Friday at 5 p.m. UK time, which aims to cover off 3 of the juiciest stories we could find going on and bubbling along in the games industry in any given week. Finished up with everything else round of quickfire tidbits that we couldn't fit into the main. But before we do that, we will wax lyrical, I should say, on what we've mostly been playing in any given week. So, Rich, I'll throw over to you first, mate. What have you been playing this week? A very special week for you because it was your birthday.
It was my birthday, yes, which unfortunately, because this in the year is an incredibly busy week for me. We've got the missus's birthday, we've got the would-be father-in-law's birthday, so the week has been spent mostly socialising with people. So because of that, I have played no games whatsoever. So very poor on my behalf, I apologise. But yeah, that's where I'm at. A lot of gaming last week, but that's it for me.
A quick handover then, and I think we'll be quickly on to the news. Yeah, because I am in a similar boat, mate. I did play Death Stranding on Monday.
Nice.
I think the update was last week that I just cracked, I just started to tap into 3 or 4 of the preppers in the second area. I've now gone all the way down to the bottom of the map, so the weather. And then you go to another one, I forget what it is.
The farm.
The farm.
Yeah.
I think it was the farm, yeah. Yeah, that's it, because I bombed through a mule camp.
Yeah.
In the mule truck. I've just done that. I think I saved up there. So yeah, I'm really starting to open that area up now and, like following your footsteps, working on roads.
Yeah.
Trying to find those ceramics and, still enjoying it, chipping away at it. I feel like I'll keep playing it. I'm not like... I'm wanting to go back to it, so that's great. Not touch Skyward Sword, which is a problem because I think I've completely forgotten every system and all the controls in that. But that's where we are. I mean, we don't cover it. We haven't got this as a news story, actually, mate. I should probably mention it. What have you made about the Nintendo Switch Online service and the N64 games that are coming? I've heard a really bad reception this week in terms of they're like bare minimum sort of ports or emulations of it.
I mean, I've seen some screenshots of this, like a comparison of like original N64, like I think the Wii U, or was it possibly the Wii had some ports, and then something else, and then they look really scaled back. I would say they're almost not even on par with the N64 in some cases in terms of the graphical fidelity. Some of them look awful.
This is it. I've heard about poor control schemes as well. Some glitches in the likes of Mario 64. Yeah, so it feels like Nintendo, and obviously they're charging people more money for this as well. So
did I read as well?
I will say this though, mate.
Oh yeah.
You may have seen this.
Ooh.
Got that bad boy.
Now that's an interesting one because I've been reading that the analog stick on that is worse than the original N64 one.
Can't be possible. That was terrible in itself, wasn't it?
I'm telling you what I read, mate. I'm just telling you what I read.
I'm keeping it in the package then as a collector's item.
So maybe
I'll be the only one with a Dean Nintendo 64 controller 10 years from now.
This is it. But I don't know. That was a headline. I didn't read the story, so it may not be true.
Well, let us know, BArcadians, if you've had an experience with the Nintendo Switch Online. It's fair to say I've not been enamoured by it. I'm not going to buy into it. I've just cancelled my recurring online membership, actually. I think Nintendo really need to put some real investment into it and make it a showpiece, not this disappointment, which it seems to be. But let's move on to the main, Rich.
Absolutely.
3 of the juiciest stories we could find. Fair bit going on this week, so... not too bad, but let's kick off with the first story of the day, Guardians of the Galaxy Review Roundup. So I've basically ripped 3 reviews from Metacritic to try and give us a cross-section of what we're seeing amongst the critical reception of the game. So Metacritic... Go on.
Just for context, the reason why this is in here is because I think this has really come out of the blue. We were not expecting these kind of scores for this game. We thought it would be more like the Marvel's Avengers game, didn't we, Tabs? Like, really poorly received. So stay tuned for some really interesting thoughts on this.
Exactly. So, yeah, Metacritic, it's currently sitting at an 81, just for context.
Wow.
I'll kick off, and we'll take it in turns after after Rich, but Trusted Reviews gave it an 80, and this is what they had to say. After stumbling out of the gate with last year's Avengers, Square Enix has managed to steady the ship with Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. For the story alone, the game is well worth playing, but it's the abundance of lore, well-written dialogue, and gorgeous locales that elevate it as one of the best Marvel games to date. If the game's combat bore a tad more finesse, and if some of the glitches had been ironed out before launch, then Guardians would be more in line with the quality we've seen from Marvel's Spider-Man. But the game has shown that Square Enix can make the most of the license when steered in the right direction. I'm now very excited to see what the company can do next. Very positive.
Eurogamer gave it a 90, which was equivalent to a 9 out of 10, and they had this to say: Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is simply one of the most satisfying superhero action-adventure games we've played recently. A great story, hilarious gameplay, and excellent technical achievement make this the new work of Eidos Montreal one of the best games of the year. Wow. One of the best games of the year. That's insane.
I know. It's making me think if I should buy it. I don't think I'm going to, but we'll come back to that. Last critical article we've got here, or review, is from IGN. They give it an 80 again, another 80. And they said, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy nicely balances a goofy action-filled adventure with some genuinely heartfelt story moments. And the choices you're given can add some surprising personal twists to your particular playthrough. Player agency, I like it. Its combat and level design are relatively simple, if still consistently entertaining. But it's the relationships and banter between its characters that keep everything fresh as they evolve. It isn't going to set the world on fire, but Guardians of the Galaxy is still another convincing example of how much fun a linear, no-frills single-player campaign can be. So I think that probably conveys quite... Go on, you want to jump in?
I was just going to say, this is just... Obviously, we'll get onto these reviews in a second, but I'd just like to make a comment on the fact that they mentioned that this has some flaws in it, but have still given it what is in essence an 8 out of 10, 80 out of 100, and yet Death Stranding gets 61. It makes no sense whatsoever.
We'll never let that one go, will we? Yeah, if you're new to the channel, Rich and I butthurt, to say the least, about IGN's Death Stranding review. We feel it was really unfair. But that's another story for another time. So yeah, on this, that last IGN review, I think conveys my thoughts. I'm glad to see from the outside looking in that they're back on like we saw in a previous review, a good direction with where they're taking these IPs, because it's such a treasured IP in many fans' eyes, and it deserves, I think, to have a good footing in the games industry. We don't want to see these, very much with Marvel's Avengers, it was this kind of looter template, wasn't it, that just totally almost distorted, perverted the sort of the experience that players were having, because it was just built to drain the cash from your wallet, I think. So yeah, it's lovely to see the single player experience, and it sounds like great story. I've seen a bit of the combat, and that's the thing that puts me off, and they kind of allude to it there, that it's a bit basic. And I've seen the combat, and it didn't make me think AAA, really well built system combat. It kind of looked a bit janky, I suppose. So yeah, for me, I'm still going to remain a spectator, but great to see they're heading back in this direction. Maybe third time's the charm, and we can see an absolutely monstrous game in whatever Marvel IP they attack next. Any final thoughts on that, Rich, before you move us on?
No, I think that's pretty much covered it off. I'm the same, really. I mean, when this was first announced, I thought this could be brilliant. I really love the Guardians of the Galaxy films, so I thought this could be really good. Tabs, I think, was like, be careful, mate, because, the Avengers game, this could be awful. So it's really positive to see something like quite seemingly a worthwhile product coming out of what is a great IP. So yeah, really cool, and hopefully it does well, and maybe it's a title to pick up for Christmas or something, when there's nothing else to play for. So we'll see. But anyway, I shall move us on to something that passed me by, almost got me the sack from the channel, that there was a State of Play this week, and we have titled this State of Play Uneventful. And Eurogamer had this to say on what was yesterday evening's State of Play.
For context, mate, basically I've taken two of the biggest titles that I thought were worth talking about, and we've just skipped the rest. So that's what we're going to be going through.
Spot on, and the reason we've skipped everything else is because the title says it all. There wasn't much in this. There was a lot of things that you were like, okay, that's fine, get on to something more interesting. And I think the last thing, which I think looks like I'm going to talk about first, was the real standout for me. So let's get into that, and this is what Eurogamer had to say about that. Tonight's grand finale was an extended look at Little Devil Inside, the long-awaited arty adventure where you travel an overworld via train, car and on foot, meet creepy characters and complete quests. It caught our eye during Sony's E3 2020 show, but has been around much longer, and at one point was coming to the Wii U. Wow, it is been out for a while. There's still no firm release date, but a vague 2022 launch window for PlayStation 4 and 5. Now, I think this looked incredible, and it really caught my eye. I think I mentioned Tabs, it looks like an action adventure game, sort of in the style of Wes Anderson, if you know his quirky films. Really cool director. So yeah, that's sort of caught my eye, and it just looks like it will be a lot of fun to play, the little adventures. Yeah, I really like the looks of that. I don't know what you had.
It was the variety as well, wasn't it? Definitely, like you say, some Wes Anderson kind of. It's got a really auteur style, so that kind of color palette that he loves. It had these really cinematic shots, and there was a cross section of the train it was on at one point. Yeah. All very evocative of Wes Anderson. And I think it was just the big variety of switching between this overworld, and you seem to be traveling. That's a big theme, isn't it? And then you go into these smaller sections that are more carefully crafted, linear sections, aren't they, Rich? Where destinations you arrive at, it seemed. And there was some, potentially great little story moments hinted at there. So yeah, I was really, really impressed by it. Obviously it's a smaller scale project, but it's obviously been in development for a long time. So
and it looks really gorgeous, I thought.
Yeah, really keen to see what this will turn out like.
Excellent. Right, so IGN had this to say about another game that we have on there. So Star Ocean: The Divine Force was revealed at PlayStation's October State of Play, being one of a dozen or so games to get a trailer during the live stream presentation. The debut trailer focuses on gameplay, but revealed a few elements of the story as well. Developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix, Star Ocean is an action-adventure RPG series that focuses on a choice-driven relationship system that shapes both the way characters interact with one another and how the story ultimately plays out. I think looked cool. I have to say I wasn't oh my god, this is amazing, quite like I was with the previous game we just spoke about, but it looks interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. What did you make of that one, Tabs?
We commented when we were watching it, the engine looked very much a work in progress, because I just remembered at one point there was this horrendous pop-up and the frame rate seemed chuggy as well.
Yeah.
And I just thought, blimey, this is an early look. I mean, I think Star Ocean, it's got some lineage, hasn't it? So I'm sure there's a fan base, and I don't want to offend them. But I just think, for me, you get these JRPG vibes, which, it's not always my bag, but I know I'd have some JRPGs, and I know some people are absolutely in love with them. And there's kind of a squarey feel to it as well. And I think it could turn into something good. But I suppose I almost felt to me, you like something to have a real distinct identity, and I found it hard to find identity. It was just such a hodgepodge almost. And
it sort of felt for me a bit like a mix between Final Fantasy and Monster Hunter, that kind of feel of mashing those two games together. And those games are brilliant in their own right, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, it just didn't inspire me to think, I really want to play this, because it's I don't know, it's one of them.
It feels like a game that might not stick the landing on this entry, but maybe after a couple of sequels, it will find its feet, find its voice, and really come to, could grow into something special. That's the vibe I got, but we shall have to wait and see.
Absolutely. And then
let's move on.
I would say everything else on the State of Play was just uninteresting, not something we were that interested in. So yeah,
we mentioned an Among Us clone, didn't we, with higher production values?
Yeah, it looks cool, but then Among Us is so good at what it does already. Do we need another one that's got higher production value? Don't know. But anyway, do you want to move us on, Tabs?
Let's do it. Halo Infinite campaign reveal is the last story of today, and this article was taken from Games Radar. This is what they had to say. Naturally, there's been some trepidation surrounding the Halo Infinite campaign. For those of you that have been following this franchise for a while now, I'd imagine this statement won't come as much of a surprise. The community at large has approached every one of 343 Industries' efforts in this universe with caution. Ever since 2012's Halo 4 failed to reinvigorate the series in the same way that Halo's Combat Evolved did through Reach, and the divisive Halo Infinite campaign reveal last summer certainly didn't help calm the nerves of anxious players. But after over a year of radio silence, Master Chief has finally made contact, and with it, the battle 343 has been waging against the mounting expectations may be about to turn. In the Halo Infinite campaign overview, we received our best look at the upcoming first-person shooter's single-player portion ahead of its release on November the 8th for PC, Xbox One and Xbox Series X. And it looks like the delay has done the game the world of good. 15 months ago, I took you inside 343's attempt to build the most ambitious Halo game ever made, and it finally feels like the studio is in a good place to make good on that promise. It looks incredibly fun, different, new, worlds apart from the stale campaigns of Halo 4 and Halo 5 Guardians. If this new look at the Halo Infinite campaign is fully representative of the final experience, then it would appear that 343 is on track to deliver an experience that can weld the reactive sandbox action that made Halo 2 and Halo 3 so memorable together with what it was only ever hinted at in Combat Evolved's opening missions, quiet exploration of a massive hostile alien world. Okay, 343, I'm in. I'm so very in. So yeah, I've seen the trailer and I was pretty impressed. I mean, the graphics have certainly taken certainly improved. The lighting system, I think, has done a lot to help with that. Maybe some textures as well have been addressed. There was some great little set pieces in there. I remember there was one with you were on some sort of like you're flying. I'm sure there's a Halo name for them that fans will be absolutely furious. I don't know, but there was some flying crafts. And then they were like grappling between them mid-air, which I thought was really cool and looked fun as. From what I've seen of the reception, I think it split some people. Some people are really impressed. Others are worried that this new open world direction they're going in might have a negative effect on what we've come to love about the Halo series. So some of the kind of like linear set piece experiences, are they still going to be there? Are they still going to feel the same because it's more this open world setup? But mate, have you had a chance to check it out? Have you got any thoughts?
Watched a few bits of it. I have to say the game, the one thing that would sell me on it if I was into first person shooters was the gameplay looks really good fun. You know, it looks like it's going to be a good fun game to play. And especially with the multiplayer on top of that, I think it's going to appease lots of the fans of the series for that. The graphics, now they are obviously a step up of what we've seen before. I think the biggest problem I've got with the graphics, and the graphics don't have particularly a great deal of detrimental effect on the game, is, you know, this is supposed to be a next generation game. This is a next generation Halo, and quite frankly, the lights.
Hey mate, did you say it's not even as good as God of War, is it? In terms of,
well, this is the thing. I don't think it looks as good as some of the final games we saw on the PlayStation 4 or the old Xbox. You know, things like God of War. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima. That looks incredible. And when you compare, you know, these games, you think this is supposed to be like a big step in graphics. In terms of when we're talking teraflops, when we're talking shaders, when we're talking what can be done, I just don't think it looks as good as it should, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I do think that the gameplay looks enough to carry it over the threshold in terms of it being a really good game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, mate. I think broadly, there's still a few question marks there, but you've got to actually clap them for being brave enough to go in this open world direction and try and evolve it. You know, I suppose we hope for this, that what we saw with Breath of the Wild, you know, they pushed to really reimagine and evolve the franchise of Zelda. Hopefully this will be for that, you know, in the same way for the Halo franchise. So fingers crossed for everybody.
Absolutely. Right, so should we do everything else?
Let's rattle it off.
Right, so I'll get us started. So first up, BlizzCon 2022 has been cancelled to prioritise supporting our teams. Probably a very good move indeed.
I saw something else about Bobby Kotick, like saying he's going to take a pay cut until all this is sorted out, even though he's just had like $155 million bonus.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's quite prepared to take a pay cut then. Blimey.
Well, it's virtue signalling, mate, isn't it? I think he's just trying to look great. Next up, Starfield might feature Mandalorian-style weapon mounts, according to new concept art. Cool.
Very cool. Valheim Ice Cave teased for small update ahead of Mistlands. It's very exciting if you're a Valheim fan, which we are, Tabs.
And certainly we are. We might have to dive back in if we can find some time. Fortnite welcomes Resident Evil's Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield.
That's literally in there, Tabs, because we really like those characters. So I just thought it was an interesting note for us.
We certainly do. Fantastic, mate. Well, thank you as ever for joining me. BArcadians, thank you for watching. We do appreciate it. Please give us a like if you've not already. It helps to grow the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, if you love what we do, and ring that bell for notifications to stay abreast of everything we put out there, which is most of the news at the minute, but you never know. And hopefully we'll see you this time next week, Friday, 5 p.m. UK time for another episode. And I think, Rich, that's another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.